Hi everybody. Today we're gonna go over very briefly the planets and the houses. And I'm gonna just give details of who these are and what they mean. When I was learning Jyotish, I wished that I could find sources easily ready, without a lot of added opinions and things like that. I just kind of wanted to get the basics before I started generating my own opinions about things. I think it's good to have a firm foundation to start with. So I haven't seen a lot of videos like this one, so that's the main reason I wanted to make it. These are things that I take into consideration when I'm thinking about Jyotish or Vedic astrology, so I wanted to share it. The first thing we're going to go over are the planets, and very briefly I'm going to just tell a little bit about the history of these planets. So the first planet that we'll talk about is Surya, or the sun. Surya is the source of life. He has 4 arms usually when he's depicted in a semi-human form. He's the son of Kashyap and Aditi. He had many consorts. The first one is Usha, which means dawn. The second one is Padmini, which means lotus. The third one is Sajjana, which is clouds. The fourth one is Chaya. And Sanjana, as I've spoke in my Gulika video with Shani, Sanjana gave birth to Yama, Yamuna, and Manu. And Manu is the original man. And Yamuna, of course, is a major river in India. And Yama, as you all know, is the god of death. And I have gone into a lot more details about Yama in my video of Baharani Nakshatra. So if you want to hear some more about Yama, you can check out that video in my playlist. Sanjana, the wife of Surya, couldn't stand the heat of Surya, and so she went to practice meditation as a deer, and she left her shadow, Chaya. Now Chaya was also having 2 sons and 2 daughters. And one of those was Shani, the planet Saturn. And sometimes throughout this video, because most of the planets were kind of mixed in together, you'll hear more details about Surya when I get to my Shani part of this lesson here as well. And the next planet that I thought were some important ideas that needed to be known is the moon, or Soma. Now Soma has 2 hands when he's depicted in the human form. Usually he has no body. His mother was Anasuya. She was actually doing severe penance, and she got moon as a boon, or Chandra as a boon. Chandra married the 27 daughters of Daksha. when Daksha gave his 27 daughters to the moon, he made Chandra promise that he wouldn't look down on any of his daughters. And Chandra promised. But he was really fond of Rohini and spent more time with Rohini. And so a lot of the others got angry at this, because of course they wanted to be with him also. So it was kind of, they felt neglected, and so basically Daksha gave him a curse, which made him start to fade a little bit. And some stories say that this curse was from Jupiter as well, but Daksha did cause him to fade, and Chandra prayed to Shiva, and Shiva, he told him that because of this curse, he wouldn't totally fade out, but like when we have the waxing and the waning of the moon, that would still continue because of this curse. And so it made Chandra really sad because he was so luminous, as I've pointed out in my in a couple of my videos, where I was talking about, I think it was in my Pushya Nakshatra video, but Chandra was really luminous, almost as bright as the sun. And so he was really sad that he had to be, fading in and out, when we get the new moon and when it goes crescent and everything, when we have that beautiful crescent. And so Shiva said that, he would wear this crescent on his head, to try to make him feel better. And Chandra had Mercury with Tara, who was the wife of Jupiter, or Brihaspati. And Jupiter also cursed Mercury, and made it so Mercury was neither male or female. Because Jupiter he wasn't necessarily mad at Mercury, but he was mad at the situation. So he gave a curse to make Mercury neither male or female. And moving over to Mercury, as you know, was the son of, or Buddha was the son of Chandra and Tara. So usually when Moon and Mercury are conjunct, it makes one unstable. And the reason I pointed that out for this video is because you'll see a lot of videos where people say that like Mercury and Moon is like a great combination, but it's not. It can make the native really unstable. When Mercury found out like how he was born, it made him feel like, really out of place. And so Mercury ended up going to the Himalayas to meditate. And Narayan blessed him. And so Mercury is a blessing in itself. Mercury doesn't usually cause any really horrible, malefic events in people's lives. But while he was doing penance, there was an apsara, which is like a celestial like a celestial angel, so to speak. But this Apsara saw him and tried to get him to be with her. But Mercury didn't want to be like his dad, Chandra. And so this Apsara got really, really upset because she wanted him like really bad. And so she cursed him. You know, people did a lot of cursing, you know, back in the days. And, you know, and you'll start to notice that throughout, you know, learning about Jyotish and learning about the Vedic way of life. But she cursed him to be like a eunuch. But Mercury still ended up getting married to Illa. And Illa is a goddess who transforms from man to woman every month. So that ended up working out pretty well. And she was really beautiful, like whether she was a woman or a man. Next we'll move to Shukra or Venus. Shukra was born in the constellation of Swati Nakshatra. He was the son of Sage Brighu and Usana. Shukra ended up being the teacher to the Asuras. And the reason that is because Brihaspati, or Jupiter, and him, they were both students of Brihaspati's father, Angrias, Sage Angrias. And so Sage Angrias, of course, you know, fancied his son, Brihaspati, more than Shukracharya. And so, you know, it was a little bit unfair, I guess you might say. And so, you know, Shukracharya made it a point to, I mean, since Brihaspati got to be the guru of the Devas, Shukracharya went to be the guru of the demon-like Asuras. And the Devas were also, you know, under the protection of Vishnu. But Shukracharya did a lot of penance to Shiva to get the Sanjivani mantra. And this mantra is able to bring the dead back to life. And you can find it on the internet. It's a really beautiful mantra. So basically during this time, the Devas and Asuras were like fighting. You know, your basic story of good against evil. And so this whole thing with this Sanjivani mantra, so while the Asuras were getting killed, Shukracharya could bring them back to life. And so the Devas weren't going to have this, you know. They needed to get, you know, to stop this from happening. And so Shukra had told the Asuras to go to his father's ashram and hide there. And when the Devas were coming to attack them, they went to the wife of Brighu and her name was, please forgive me if I'm not saying this right, Kavyamanta. And Kavyamata used her magic yogic powers to make Indra unmovable. And so Indra was not able to move, and he couldn't do anything. And so Vishnu entered the body of Indra to save the Devas. And when Kavyamata heard about this, she was going to turn everybody into ashes. But Indra got Vishnu to, take off her head with his Sundarshana chakra, which is the Sundarshana chakra is the divine discus, that little disc that he holds, and it can go anywhere. So later on in this process, Brihaspati wanted to send his son Kacha to learn the Sanjivani mantra from Shukra. So Brihaspati told his son to impress the daughter of Brihaspati. Of Shukra. And so Kacha tried to impress Shukracharya's daughter, Devanani, but she ended up falling in love with him. And so the Asuras still wanted to kill Kacha if he ended up learning this mantra. And every time they killed him, Shukracharya, who was their guru, would bring him back to life because of his daughter loved him. So finally the Asuras burned Kacha and poured alcohol on him. And then when Shukracharya heard about this, he drank it up and he taught the Sanjivani mantra to Kacha, and he came out of his stomach. Like he ripped his body open and came out of his stomach. And when Kacha was going back to Brihaspati, his father, Devyani asked him to marry her, but he said no. So she cursed him because she was so mad. She loved him. And so she cursed him, and she said that as soon he wouldn't remember the mantra when he needed it the most. And so, and it ended up actually happening. When he needed it, he didn't remember it. There's also another story about Venus or Shukracharya. When King Bali was tested by Vishnu in the form of when Vishnu took the form or the avatar of Vamana. That was the short avatar. Basically, Shukracharya was telling Bali And this was like a really like evil king. And Shukracharya was basically telling him, you know, like all the plots that were going against him and how they wanted to get him killed. And so there was one time where Shukracharya sat in the spout of a vase, and Vishnu saw, and Vishnu picked up a straw from the ground and directed it on the spout, which in result Shukra became half blind. So that was kind of a little interesting topic from history, at least I thought so. And next we'll move to Mangala, or Mars. And so he was the son of the earth goddess Bhumi. When the earth was in the cosmic ocean, it got stolen by a demon, Hiranyakash. And Vishnu, in his avatar of Varha, gave Bhumi a red coral as a gift because she was the earth goddess. And so he gave her a red coral, but she ended up accidentally dropping it into the ocean. And what came out was a really sweet looking child called Lohit Tanga. He ended up living in Narmada, and he was raised by a sage. And later he went to go do penance in the forest, and his penance reached so high that he got to become a planet in the sky. Now, some stories say that he was the sweat from Shiva, and it had dropped when Shiva was doing his meditation. It dropped to the earth, on Mother Earth, the same earth goddess Bhumi, and then basically it's the same story. It's just a little bit of a different variation, but it came from the sweat of Shiva, and then when it touched the ground, it became Mangala. And now we'll move to Brihaspati, or Jupiter. And Jupiter is the son of sage Angrias. He also did severe penance to Shiva, and so Shiva gave him to be the Deva of the Gurus. During this time, though, Indra kind of disrespected Brihaspati. And Indra was the king of the gods. He kind of took Brihaspati for granted. And so Brihaspati, he wasn't going to have it. It was complete nonsense. And he, was really hurt by, being unappreciated and, even disrespected, I mean, it wasn't just that he was unappreciated. He got disrespected too a couple of times. So he left and started to, just do his thing by himself. And, he didn't put up a fight or anything. He just left. And so the Devas needed a new guru during this time. So Indra appointed Vishvarupa. But this Vishvarupa was secretly teaching the Asuras, he was basically giving things with one hand and then doing things with his other hand in a completely different way. um, but the Devas figured it out, and um, you know, they started to get suspicious. But these asuras, they were going to create like a really bad demon. And this demon was going to like kill everyone. And they were getting really strong. And so they didn't know what to do because Vishvarupa was, you know, not as he appeared, and was going behind their backs and was actually on the Asura's side. And so Indra ended up repenting to and saying he was sorry to Brihaspati. And so Brihaspati said the only way that they were going to kill this demon was to get a weapon from the bones of sage Daichi. They were going to have to make a weapon from his bones. And there's a lot of stories that you can find about sage Daichi. And Jupiter's most favored position is in the first house. He's very powerful in the angle houses, where he can destroy 1 lakh of afflictions. And the angle houses are the first house, the 4th house, the 7th house, and the 10th house. He's also really powerful in the 5th and 9th house. And this planet is mostly made of hydrogen and helium. Now we'll go to Shani. Shani was born on the Shani Amansya. Chaya and Surya are his parents. He had his brother and 2 sisters. When his mom, Chaya, even though she didn't give love to Yamuna and Yama, she did like her own kids, and Shani was one of them. But his Chaya was doing really severe penance, and she would sit in the sun and she wouldn't eat. And so when she had Shani, he was so dark in color, and Surya didn't even believe that this child was his. And so it was really kind of disrespectful. And the sun actually went into an eclipse when he first looked at Shani. And Shani was really mad at the way that he treated his mom. And so he ended up turning Surya black. Which is, kind of weird. But and Shiva ended up coming and telling Surya that he was wrong, And so Surya ended up apologizing to Shani. And Shani promised that there would be no ill effects for any human until they were 16. And as I've said before in my previous videos, Hanuman and Ganesha cannot be affected by Shani. So praying to these deities, if your Shani is, giving any hard times, this can really help a lot. There's also a story about Shani where Shani actually had a wife, and I don't know why I didn't write down her name, but she ended up, Shani would do severe penance, and his wife got so mad because she, she wanted all of his attention, and so she cursed him, and she said that anything that he looks at will turn to, will be afflicted. And so that's why Shani's drishti, that's why Shani's aspect can be so heavy and dangerous sometimes. And it was so sad because Shani, he didn't like that. So he would always have his head down and he didn't want to look at anybody, because he knew that if he did, that curse would take its effect, And so, it just goes to show everybody thinks Shani's just so evil and he's kind of a semi-trickster and everything. No, it's not really like that. Now we'll go to Rahu and Ketu. These are actually two parts of the Asura Swarabanu. He was a demon who actually ended up drinking the nectar of life that would give him immorality so he wouldn't die, or immortality so he wouldn't die. During the churning of the ocean, and this is I'm going over this very briefly, Vishnu took the form of a tortoise. It's also the avatar Kurma. And Kurma means the energy that holds the Kundalini tied to the Muladhara chakra. That's at the base of the spine. And this is what supported the churning stick on his back. So that Asura, which is actually Rahu and Ketu, he took his place, Sarvabhahu took his place between Chandra and Surya. But they noticed and they said something. And then while Vishnu was in his form, but also in his divine form of Mohini, he ended up throwing his Sandarshan chakra, or the divine discus, and sliced off Sarvabhanu's head. And so that's why you have the head as Rahu and then the headless body for Ketu. And that was just a little bit of back history about the planets that I thought was important. And the next thing that I want to go over really briefly here in this one video is going to be the houses and what they signify. And this is really brief, and I'll kind of try to be quick about it. So the first house, it signifies your personality and fame. So, the first house can also go as far as like the Atman, or the self. It can be your innate nature, your psychological makeup, your character, your dignity, your vitality, even your place of birth, maybe your social level. And the body parts are the head, brain, and forehead. So you can kind of look at your houses as a human, as a person, So if you want to look at it like that as well, you can. And the second house, it is the house of wealth. It also can be like family happiness, precious metals, your facial expression, memory. It can sometimes be your self-confidence and your source of income, your vision, food, speech, your family, and your teeth, your tongue, your jaws, your voice. And the third, and I forgot to mention, so the second house is like your eyes, especially your right eye, and everything on your face, like your tongue, your thyroid, your mouth. And the third house is going to be, it signifies your valor. It also signifies your efforts, short-term desires, sometimes it could be like the cause of someone's death or the death of your parents. It's kind of your action, your hobbies, and the body part for the third house. And sometimes it can be siblings also, or friends. It's also, the body parts is like the shoulders, the hands, the arms, the elbows. And the fourth house signifies your house and conveyances. It also is like your heart, your contentment. It could stand for like agricultural properties and agriculturals that you own, or any like farmland. It can be holy places. Your home country, confidence, contentment. It can mean your mother as well. And the area of the body is the chest, lungs, and heart. And so the fifth house signifies progeny and divine merit. This can also be like knowledge of mantras, tantras, and yantras, like spiritual techniques as well. It could be royalty, authority, amusements, recreations, children, knowledge, education, creative intelligence. And the part of the body here is going to be like the liver, the navel, the kidneys, and even the spleen. And the sixth house signifies enemies and debt. And it can also signify like illnesses, obstacles, anxieties, worries, diseases. conflicts, your competitive power. And the area of the body for here is like the digestive system, the intestines, and like in your belly button area. And the 7th house signifies your life partner. So husband, wife, lover, marriage. It can also signify the nature of your spouse. And the areas of the body here is like below the navel, and it's your internal sexual organs, not the external, but the inside of the sexual organ. And the 8th house, this signifies death, and it also signifies like longevity too, psychic abilities. This one also is practices in mantra, tantra, and yantras. It also is like, it can be dangers, inheritance, sometimes, not very often, but sometimes, depending on like the aspects and everything. It can be also the mode of death, sometimes hidden treasures. And the body parts for this house is the external sexual organs, so the outside. And the 9th bhava signifies fortune, father, and guru. It can also signify dharma and penance, philosophy, merits from past lives, meditation, tapas or penance. And the part of the body for this house is the thighs or your hips. And the 10th house signifies your profession. It can also signify your sense of importance also. It can also signify living in foreign lands, activity. And the parts of the body for the 10th bhava is the knees and the spine. And the 11th house signifies fulfillment of all desires. So it's kind of the wish-fulfilling house, the good news. Hopes and profits and long-term desires too. So not just the short-term ones, the long-term ones also. And the parts of the body here are the calves, ankles, and the left ear. And the 12th house signifies liberation and incarceration. It can also signify like moksha or liberation, renunciation, enlightenment, loss of attachment, sometimes loss of identification as well, lonely places, charity, journey to far off distant lands, ashrams, monasteries, and secrecy. Also, it can go into like higher levels of consciousness as well. The parts of the body for this is the feet and the left eye. And so everybody, thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope that you all got a little bit more insight from this video, and I hope this video will help you in the future. Have a great night.